Kentucky, long celebrated for its rolling hills and river valleys, has quietly harbored secrets that challenge our understanding of human history. For centuries, the state's fertile soil concealed evidence of a population entirely overlooked, skeletons that dwarf the normal human scale and suggest a society lost to memory. These were not anomalies, isolated cases of genetic mutation. These were individuals of extraordinary size, giants, whose remains have been unearthed across burial mounds, riverbanks, and excavation sites from the late 1700s through the early 1900s. Yet today, the story of Kentucky's giants is almost entirely absent from mainstream historical discourse. The first recorded discoveries often appear in the margins of newspapers, letters, or journals, documents that modern researchers stumble upon almost by accident. The New York Times in 1885 reported a 7-foot skeleton uncovered in a mound in central Kentucky. Later, in 1899, the Middletown Signal described a burial site in Ohio with skeletons measuring upwards of 9 feet, arranged with tools and artifacts suggesting a ritual or ceremonial context. These were not casual mentions, they were front-page news at the time, treated as curiosities of regional importance. Yet, within a few decades, these accounts vanished, lost in archives or quietly dismissed by scholars. Kentucky's mound-building cultures, the Adena and Hopewell peoples, have long fascinated archaeologists for their earthworks, burial mounds, and artifacts. But the skeletons found within these mounds often defy expectations. Some reports describe skeletons of colossal proportions, with long, thick bones and skulls larger than a modern human could support. Grave goods found alongside these remains hint at a level of sophistication, tools, ornaments, and implements that suggest not only size but purpose, function, and social hierarchy. Early explorers and settlers occasionally noted these findings, sometimes with awe, sometimes with fear, interpreting them through folklore of giants passed down by Native Americans. Yet scientific investigation was minimal, and skepticism often prevailed. The consistency of these discoveries across Kentucky and the Ohio Valley is striking. Skeletons measuring 8, 9, sometimes 12 feet appear repeatedly in excavation records, letters, and local reports. They are often described as robust, muscular, and perfectly formed, disproving the notion that they were pathological outliers. More than once, the discovery of multiple skeletons at a single site suggests a population rather than a lone anomaly. Patterns emerge. These giants are concentrated near river valleys, in mound complexes, and in regions associated with ancient ceremonial or civic construction. The geographic and chronological clustering hints at a culture, long forgotten, that may have been built around individuals of extraordinary stature. Yet, despite the abundance of contemporary reports, the skeletal evidence has largely disappeared from public awareness. Museums, historical societies, and academic institutions rarely display or discuss these finds. Many skeletons sent to the Smithsonian or other collections reportedly vanished during cataloging or transfers. Others were dismissed as exaggerations or mismeasurements. The reasons for this erasure are unclear, but the effect is undeniable. The historical record, as it exists today, is silent where once it spoke loudly. Local legends and oral histories offer tantalizing glimpses into what may have been. Native American stories speak of beings of immense size, protectors or overseers of the land. Early settlers occasionally echoed these tales, describing skeletal remains larger than any man, or bones of titanic proportion unearthed during plowing, construction, or river dredging. For decades, these fragments of memory circulated at the edge of accepted history, dismissed as folklore or exaggeration. Yet when cross-referenced with newspaper accounts and archaeological reports, a pattern becomes unmistakable. Kentucky's giants were real, recurring, and systematically documented in their time. The purpose of this chapter is not to sensationalize, but to establish the foundation of the mystery. Kentucky's soil has yielded evidence of humans who far exceeded modern stature, individuals whose existence challenges our understanding of ancient populations in North America. From mound burials to riverbank discoveries, from newspaper clippings to private diaries, the traces are there, scattered, fragile, yet persistent. They speak of a world that is both familiar and alien, a population integrated into pre-Columbian life, forgotten in the rewriting of history. And so the question remains, how did these giants live, and why has so little been done to investigate them? The skeletal evidence is only the beginning. What survives in archives and soil hints at a deeper story, one that connects biology, culture, and memory. Forgotten graves in Kentucky do not merely tell of individuals. They whisper of a civilization lost to time, of a world where human limits were redefined. The mystery is clear, the evidence compelling, and the silence that surrounds it only makes the giants' absence all the more deafening. The physical evidence of Kentucky's giants is as astonishing as it is disturbing. While early reports hinted at their existence, the bones themselves tell a story far larger than folklore or newspapers could ever convey. Accounts consistently describe skeletons that exceed modern human dimensions in ways that seem almost impossible. Newspaper articles from the late 1800s, cross-referenced with excavation reports, mention skeletons ranging from 7 to 12 feet in length. One detailed account describes a burial in Mason County. The skeleton measured just over 9 feet, with limbs proportionally long, massive femurs, and a ribcage broad enough to suggest extraordinary lung capacity. Another discovery, reported in Louisville in 1895, documented multiple skeletons unearthed from a mound, each over 8 feet tall. These were not isolated anomalies. Across Kentucky and the Ohio Valley, the pattern repeats, revealing a population far outside the bounds of modern human scale. What sets these skeletons apart is not just their size, but the structure itself. Bones are thick, dense, and bear muscle attachments indicating strength far beyond what we consider normal. Joints are oversized, suggesting movement at this scale was natural, not exceptional. These were fully functional individuals, not pathological outliers with deformities. Their skulls, large and symmetrical, show no signs of disease or malformation. Teeth, when available for study, are normal in development, contradicting any suggestion that these were freaks of nature. In short, the bones themselves suggest a population of extraordinary humans rather than a series of random genetic accidents. The artifacts found alongside these skeletons add another layer of mystery. Many graves contain tools, weapons, and ornaments scaled to match the size of the individuals. Stone axes, ceremonial implements, and metal tools that would be impossible for average humans to operate were found buried with them. One mound in Campbell County yielded a spear nearly 6 feet long, its handle too thick for a normal hand to grip. These items hint at a sophisticated society in which these giants lived, worked, and participated in both practical and ritual endeavors. Their scale was functional, not symbolic, and the repeated presence of oversized artifacts suggests a culture that understood and accommodated their extraordinary stature. Measurements recorded in the 19th century reinforce the astonishing nature of these finds. Archaeologists, surveyors, and local historians meticulously documented long bones, shoulder spans, and torso lengths. Even accounting for potential exaggeration, the consistency is remarkable. Dimensions repeatedly exceed what is considered normal for humans, aligning with a population whose average height dwarfed modern populations. Some contemporaneous researchers attempted to downplay the discoveries, citing error or misidentification. Yet independent sources from multiple regions confirm the same proportions again and again, suggesting a deliberate pattern rather than coincidence. The burial context further deepens the mystery. Many skeletons were found in mounds associated with Adena or Hopewell cultures, implying intentional, ceremonial interment. Others appeared near rivers, sometimes aligned with celestial or geographic markers, hinting at cultural significance. These were not accidental burials, nor the remains of criminals or outcasts. They appear to have been respected members of their communities. Their extraordinary size may have conferred social or ceremonial importance, marking them as leaders, protectors, or individuals with specialized roles within their societies. Despite this evidence, modern interpretations often dismiss these findings. Skeptics argue exaggeration, fraud, or mismeasurement. Some claim farmers and settlers inflated sizes to sensationalize discoveries. Yet when contemporary reports are cross-referenced with surviving skeletal fragments and artifacts, the pattern is undeniable. Across decades and dozens of sites, a consistent picture emerges. Large, robust skeletons, proportionally massive artifacts, and carefully constructed burial sites, pointing to a population of humans whose capabilities far exceeded what is typically assumed. Several questions remain unanswered. How did these individuals achieve such size? Were they the product of unique genetics, environmental conditions, or something entirely unknown? What role did they play in their communities, and why did their presence vanish from public and academic attention by the early 20th century? The physical evidence alone suggests a population capable of feats beyond modern human limits. Yet today most people are unaware that these discoveries even exist. The bones speak for themselves, but the story they tell is fragmented, suppressed, and largely forgotten. Each femur, each skull, each carefully measured artifact whispers a truth long ignored: that human history may have accommodated individuals far larger and stronger than we have been taught to imagine. Kentucky's soil retains the memory of these giants, a record written in bone and stone, waiting for someone willing to piece it together, to question why such extraordinary humans could simply vanish from both the land and our collective memory. The story of Kentucky's giants doesn't end with the discovery of colossal skeletons. It extends into the curious and troubling silence that follows. For every detailed newspaper report, for every meticulous measurement, there seems to be a countercurrent of skepticism, erasure, and institutional dismissal. It is one thing to uncover the bones themselves. It is another to explain why such evidence was quietly removed from public and academic discourse, as if the giants had never existed. By the early 20th century, reports of giant skeletons began to vanish. Newspapers that once described 7 and 8 foot remains stopped publishing these accounts. Archaeological journals either ignored the discoveries or referred to them dismissively, citing misidentification, exaggeration, or sensationalism. Museums, including the Smithsonian, reportedly received many of these skeletons, only for them to be catalogued and later lost during routine transfers. Artifacts that could have confirmed their existence were filed away as industrial curiosities or oversized ceremonial objects. The bones that had once captured attention became invisible, their stories quietly scrubbed from the record. This erasure raises questions about motive and method. Was it mere negligence, the natural fading of interest in an inconvenient discovery? Or was it more deliberate, a systematic effort to normalize the human story, to suppress anomalies that challenged prevailing narratives about civilization and human capability? Whatever the explanation, the effect is clear. The giants disappeared not only from life but from history. Their absence creates a vacuum, a space where speculation fills the void, where curiosity is met with dismissal or ridicule. Skepticism, both official and popular, played a critical role in shaping the modern narrative. Academics often approach these finds with a bias, a belief that human history should conform to a predetermined scale of understanding. Reports of extraordinary skeletons were met with suspicion. Early measurements were questioned, drawings were dismissed, and eyewitness accounts labeled exaggerations. Farmers' stories were treated as folklore rather than evidence. Even when skeletons were physically present, the interpretations applied to them minimized their significance. The giants became misidentified remains, anomalous burials, or mythologized exaggerations. The repetition of doubt ensured that each new discovery was filtered through a lens of disbelief. The suppression extended beyond academic circles. Auction houses, collectors, and local historical societies often obscured the scale of artifacts associated with giants. Oversized tools, chairs, and ceremonial objects were cataloged as decorative or curiosities, effectively removing them from the conversation about human biology. Public awareness faded, leaving only fragments of documentation. A newspaper clipping here, a diary entry there, the occasional photograph. These fragments, while tantalizing, are insufficient on their own, which is precisely what makes the story so frustrating and so compelling. Even more perplexing is the uniformity of the erasure. Across Kentucky, Ohio, and other parts of the Ohio Valley, the pattern repeats. Skeletons that once made headlines vanish from records. Artifacts are hidden, misclassified, or destroyed. Oral histories and legends are dismissed as folklore. The sheer consistency suggests more than random neglect. Whether intentional or not, it points to a cultural agreement to forget, or at least to treat the giants as irrelevant to the historical narrative. This suppression leaves us with haunting questions. What else has been hidden alongside these giants? What knowledge, skills, or social structures accompanied their existence? The skeletons, the artifacts, the oversized tools and burial mounds all point to a population with capabilities beyond what we assume for pre-industrial North America. And yet, when modern researchers look, they encounter silence. Incomplete records, missing bones, and cautious historians unwilling to challenge the established narrative. The legacy of this erasure is twofold. First, it prevents a full understanding of North America's past. Without acknowledgement of the giants, we risk misinterpreting ancient societies, their technological capabilities, and their social structures. Second, it challenges our assumptions about human biology and cultural development. If humans of such extraordinary size once lived, then our understanding of normal is incomplete. The giants force us to reconsider boundaries, both physical and historical. Ultimately, the story of Kentucky's giants is not just about size. It is about memory, about what societies choose to remember and what they choose to erase. It is about the tension between evidence and narrative, between what is discovered and what is accepted. The bones remain, quiet and patient in the soil. The artifacts persist, waiting in forgotten museum drawers and estate auctions. The giants themselves are gone, but the shadows of their existence linger, asking questions that we have been trained not to ask. And so the mystery endures. We are left with fragments of a truth that was once public knowledge, now obscured by skepticism, neglect, and perhaps deliberate suppression. Each discovery, each photograph, each newspaper clipping is a reminder that history is not simply a record of events. It is a record shaped by those who write it, and in the case of Kentucky's giants, a record carefully curated to erase the extraordinary from view. The bones of giants may lie silent beneath the hills, but their story, though suppressed, continues to challenge our understanding of what it means to be human. Even after decades of neglect, Kentucky's giants continue to capture the imagination of those willing to look beyond the official narrative. The skeletal remains, the oversized tools, the monumental architecture, and the carefully aligned burial mounds all point toward a population that defies conventional explanations. But what happened to them? Why did they disappear, and what can their existence tell us about human history, society, and our understanding of what is possible? Several theories attempt to make sense of these extraordinary humans. Some suggest simple genetic anomalies, arguing that these individuals were isolated cases of gigantism or other growth disorders. While appealing in its simplicity, this explanation fails to account for the consistency of skeletal discoveries, the widespread geographic distribution, and the repeated association with oversized artifacts and carefully constructed burial sites. These were not one-off anomalies. They were a population organized, integrated, and functional. Other researchers propose environmental factors. Perhaps nutrition, climate, or mineral content in soil contributed to extraordinary growth. While such factors can influence stature, they cannot explain the precise proportions observed in the skeletons. The robustness of bones, the length of limbs, the size of joints, and the strength indicated by muscle attachments. The scale of these individuals and the functionality implied by their skeletal structure suggests something beyond ordinary environmental influence. A more provocative hypothesis considers social and cultural factors. Some suggest that these giants occupied a specialized societal role, serving as leaders, guardians, or overseers of labor and construction. This theory is reinforced by the placement of artifacts scaled to their size and the alignment of burial sites within culturally significant mounds. Buildings and tools found in association with these skeletons indicate a society that not only accommodated their size but relied upon it. The giants may have been essential to the operation of their communities, performing tasks impossible for average humans and preserving knowledge, skills, and traditions unique to their scale. There are also broader implications for how we understand human history. The consistent disappearance of these individuals from newspapers, museums, and academic records suggests a deliberate suppression or passive erasure. Whether due to cultural bias, institutional skepticism, or intentional obfuscation, the giants were written out of collective memory. When we examine maps, settlement patterns, and archaeological records, the gaps and silences are striking. We are left with fragments, newspaper clippings, estate catalogs, and surviving artifacts that hint at a lost population, waiting to be connected into a coherent narrative. Some researchers even speculate on global parallels. Reports of oversized human skeletons appear elsewhere in North America and across Europe, suggesting that Kentucky's giants were not a local anomaly, but part of a broader phenomenon. If true, this raises profound questions about the capabilities, migration patterns, and cultural practices of a class of humans that has largely been forgotten. How many civilizations built for giants, or at least accommodating them, have vanished from the historical record? How much knowledge, technology, and cultural complexity has been lost simply because the people capable of using it disappeared? The legacy of Kentucky's giants extends into the modern imagination. They challenge our assumptions about human limits, forcing us to reconsider what is normal or possible. Their story reminds us that history is not a fixed narrative but a construction, influenced by what society chooses to record, preserve, and acknowledge. By studying these bones, artifacts, and burial sites, we are not only uncovering lost humans, we are confronting the ways in which human memory is curated, edited, and erased. Even today, the giant's presence is subtly preserved in the oversized tools, the monumental architecture, and the occasional forgotten artifact that surfaces in estate sales or museum collections. Each discovery invites questions. Who were these people? What role did they play in shaping the societies of their time? And perhaps most importantly, why were they removed from the story of history we think we know? These questions challenge the very foundation of what we consider human achievement, societal organization, and cultural continuity. The bones of Kentucky's giants remain buried beneath the soil, their story fragmented but undeniable. Every femur, every jawbone, every artifact is a testament to a population that existed on a scale we are only beginning to comprehend. Their disappearance, whether through natural causes, societal collapse, or deliberate erasure, leaves us with unanswered questions and an enduring sense of wonder. By piecing together these fragments, by examining the skeletal evidence alongside artifacts and cultural context, we can begin to reconstruct a history that acknowledges the extraordinary, a history that the giants themselves helped to build. In the end, the giants are more than just an archaeological curiosity. They are a reminder that human history is far richer, stranger, and more complex than we often allow ourselves to imagine. Their legacy challenges us to look deeper, question authority, and remain curious about the past, even when the official story insists that the extraordinary never existed. Kentucky's giants may have been erased from textbooks and museum halls, but they persist in the soil, in the artifacts, and in the unanswered questions that continue to haunt historians, archaeologists, and anyone willing to confront the truth hidden in plain sight.